At first glance, Japan might appear to have solved homelessness. But what if that problem hasn't disappeared? It's just become invisible. According to a January 2025 survey by Japan's Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, about 2,591 people are officially counted as homeless in Japan. That number is far lower than in many other developed countries. Hi, I'm Jeff Richards and welcome to Japan Today Spotlight. In this episode, we take a closer look at what homelessness in Japan actually looks like and why you may not even see it. In the early 2000s, after Japan's long economic slump, more than 25,000 people were counted sleeping on the streets nationwide. Most are older men living in parks, along riversides, or near train stations. The peak was in 2003, when the count reached 25,296. Since then, the visible numbers have declined. International comparisons make that contrast even clearer. In the United States, the Department of Housing and Urban Development counted more than 770,000 people experiencing homelessness on a single night in January 2024. In England, more than 130,000 households were in temporary accommodation as of early 2025, according to government statistics. Japan reports relatively few people living without shelter compared with many Western countries. But many researchers say the problem hasn't disappeared. It's simply changed form. Imagine finishing a late night shift at work with nowhere permanent to go home. Instead of an apartment, you rent a small booth in a 24-hour internet cafe. A chair, a computer, sometimes a blanket. For the night, that space becomes your room. A large part of homelessness in Japan takes place out of public view. People living out of cars, capsule hotels, or cheap hostels. People spending nights in 24-hour manga cafes. Some move from place to place every night. Others stay in the same internet cafe for weeks or even months. In Japanese media, they are sometimes called net cafe refugees. That term entered the Japanese lexicon in 2007. Many of them have jobs. Scenes like this are one reason the problem in Japan can be difficult to see. Why do people fall into hidden homelessness? Well, the reasons vary. Some people lose jobs. Others face family breakdown, debt, or illness. For many, the biggest barrier is Japan's housing system itself. Renting an apartment typically requires a deposit, key money, thank you money to the renter, agency fees, and a guarantor. That can add up to at least several months of rent before you even move in. For someone who has just lost a job or left a difficult home situation, that is simply out of reach. Temporary and part-time workers are especially vulnerable to this. They may be employed, sometimes even full-time, but without the financial cushion those upfront costs demand. Since the pandemic, housing support organizations in Japan have also reported a sharp rise in young people and foreign residents seeking assistance. Many hide their situations out of embarrassment or fear. For all of them, an internet cafe can become the only immediately available option. This form of homelessness looks very different from what people expect. I'll admit, I walk past those places every day and never thought twice about who was inside. From the outside, it can be almost impossible to see. And that invisibility shapes how the problem is understood. So if many people experiencing homelessness are living indoors in cafes, cars, or temporary rooms, how many are actually missing from the official statistics? Researchers and advocacy groups have long argued that the government survey doesn't necessarily capture the full scale of housing insecurity. Hillary Keyes covers social issues for Japan Today. Her recent article, Homelessness in Japan Beyond the Official Count of 2,591, examines why so many people fall outside the data. She told us,
the official numbers seem to miss the changing face of homelessness in Japan. Historically, it has been mainly middle-aged and older men. The number of young people, families, and older women that are living well below the poverty line has grown dramatically since 2020. People are subsisting off incomes and pensions that haven't kept up with the times. They're struggling to keep a roof over their heads. I think they're effectively invisible in those numbers because they're technically housed. Therefore, they don't fit the current definition of homeless.
She also notes in that Japan Today article that the official count excludes anyone living in vehicles, net cafes, or abandoned buildings. Sociologists studying poverty in Japan have made a similar point. Professor Masami Iwata of Japan Women's University has researched homelessness in Japan for more than 30 years. Counting only people sleeping outdoors, she says, misses a much larger population living in precarious conditions. Surveys by housing assistance programs have estimated that between 100,000 and 300,000 people across Japan could be net cafe refugees. That is a very different picture from the official count of 2,591. If homelessness only counts people sleeping outside, the numbers remain relatively small. But if it includes people moving between internet cafes, cars, or short-term rooms, the picture begins to change. Japan does provide assistance programs. Local governments offer temporary housing and welfare support for those who do apply. But stigma, bureaucracy, and lack of awareness can prevent people from seeking that help. Many try to manage quietly on their own, working during the day and searching for a place to sleep at night. So the question isn't only how many people are homeless in Japan. It's also how homelessness is defined and who ends up being counted. From the Japan Today newsroom in Tokyo, I'm Jeff Richards. See you next time.